how to purchase a property that's going to achieve capital growth. Now, I'm not going to be talking about your normal thing, the normal things that I normally talk about, or the current things I always elaborate on, which is your, how many people are moving to the region, infrastructure projects, the pipeline of projects, the money getting spent, about the government policies and things like that. I'm not going to talk about that. I speak about that all the time. I'm going to speak about what we're looking at from an LGA perspective. So what I mean by that is a local government area, a council area. I want to look at how many owner-occupiers are in that region versus renters, okay? And sorry, that's from a suburb level. So I always want over 60% or 65% of owner-occupiers living in a suburb. Reason being, the higher that number, it means that there is more owner-occupiers that push up prices because there's more desirability to live in those suburbs, okay? And they look after their property. Have a think about it. If you're a landlord, some landlords that have tenants in their properties, the tenants won't look after their properties. They won't, do the gardens up. They won't have the nice backyards or front yards and spruce up the properties like the owner occupiers will. So I'm looking that from that level. So I want 65% of owner occupiers in a suburb minimum. Okay. Then what I'm looking for as well is owned outright levels. So what that means is owning the property outright with no mortgage at all. That number there, if we want, the average in Australia is 30%. Okay, so if it's greater than 30%, it's a thumbs up to moving into a region where it's got a high level of owner occupiers with no debt, or even landlords with no debt on their property. Gives you more stability in a market. Okay, some of the best property markets in Australia, or highest value property markets in Australia, have high levels of owned outright. Okay, places like Sorrento and Porty here in Victoria, 80% above. Median house price is 3 million plus. Okay, so the reason why not many people sell those properties because they're owned all outright and people never want to sell. Okay, so we're looking at from that. Now, when we get to a street level, how do we know about these things and what do we do? So we do use there is a data hub site that you can use, Suburb Trends, and look at the top 20 streets from a suburb level, and gives you from 1 to 20 the rankings of the best streets in that suburb, and that's how you can kind of make a good decision as well. If you've already done your analysis and you're trying to pick those streets, that is something you can look out for. Now, it's going to be hard to find a property in that street, sometimes getting sold, of course. Sometimes those properties don't get sold frequently as well. So what you do is you try and target properties that are close to those streets. That's something that it's a little a little good rule of thumb. If you've got a property that's close or next door or the street after, next to the top streets, then of course you're kind of like close to those good pockets. But it doesn't mean that 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a great investment or it's going to achieve good, strong capital growth because it's close to that street. So what we need to do is find out the level of owner occupiers in that street versus renters. The higher amount of owner occupiers in the street, more capital growth it's going to produce because of desirability. Places like where you can find this information is RP Data, CoreLogic. You can actually have a look from a street level by typing in the address when the last properties have been sold. Now, if the properties if there hasn't been many for sale properties in that street for the last 2 years plus, then that means there's not many people want to sell those properties because they love it there, or it's close to the amenities, it's close to schools, close to transport hubs, close to the parks, etc. And that's something to keep an eye out while you're looking at this. If you see there's not many properties getting sold in a street at all for a long period of time, okay, why? Have a look what's around the area. Have a look where it's located. Have a look at the situation, where the property's situated, or all the type of properties they are. Okay, and that is something that's very important. Okay, so think about that. Okay, and you can get some of this information about from a suburb level of owned outright levels of how many renters are in a suburb and how many people have a mortgage on their properties in a suburb, and how many properties are being owned outright at ABS data. So you can type in, Melbourne, what Melbourne, the council, or let's say Brunswick. Brunswick is in Victoria. Go Brunswick. What is the owned outright levels in Brunswick? ABS data. Type that in Google, and it'll spit it out, and you can go on the ABS data website and find that information. So that's something that you need to look out for. Like I said as well, looking at your parks and your schools, the shops, and the amenities, your transport hubs, etc. They're close to that property as well. Now, another thing is how you achieve capital growth is the land size of the property. Okay, if you buy a property that's 200 squares and it's a house, okay, compared to you buy a house that's on 600 squares, the 600 square property is going to grow more and have more capital growth because of the land size. Land is king. Okay, so make sure you target properties with good land size. We target 600 plus, so minimum 600 plus. Okay, and the bigger the land, of course, it's going to have more growth. It's going to be more expensive in the future because, of course, land is king. So keep that in mind as well. Now, what else do we want to look out for? What are the demands of the type of characteristic properties in that suburb? Okay, so what do I mean by that? You can go on ABS data and have a look at the the characteristics of houses. So from 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom in a suburb. Now, the highest valued number of bedrooms in a suburb is probably the main priority of houses that are in that location. So there might be a lot of 60% of houses in a suburb are 3 bedrooms. Now, in saying that, doesn't mean it's high demand for those 3 bedrooms. This is where you got to come back and look. We use our own private data site that helps us and gives us that, which not many people have access to at all. Okay, you can probably get that from HTag. Actually, is another website that probably you can get that information from, and actually see the demand for what type of dwellings are in a suburb. Now, let's have a think about it. I want you to do your own research when you find the suburb or location you're going to invest in. Have a look at what's for sale. If there is a lot of 3 bedrooms up for sale, okay, and there's a lot of 3 bedrooms up for rent, okay, that's the common type of dwelling, or the average type of dwelling in that location. Okay, if there's not many for 4 bedrooms for sale, and if you see the 4 bedrooms up for sale and up for lease, and they're much more greater valued, okay, of course small bedrooms is always going to be a greater price, but if you can see there's a lot of scarcity behind that, then of course that gives you a confidence that's going to give you more capital growth moving in the future because of scarcity. Okay, the more scarce your property is compared to all the other properties that are common in that location, the more capital growth you're going to achieve. Okay, so that's a great point there to have a look out for, and do a bit of your own research. You can use HTag, like I said, they can give you a bit of the guide of what is in high demand with type of bedrooms. But in saying that as well, go on realestate.com, which will give you the best clarity of how many properties are getting sold that are 3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms or 5 bedrooms, etc. And same goes from a rental perspective. Okay, and you can make a great decision there of the scarce location. Now, it's not just that. You can even call your real estate agents that where you're looking for an investment property and speak to them and ask them questions. Okay, what it's more demand from a sale perspective, is it 4 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, and speak to a property manager and ask about the rental perspective as well, and say what's getting snatched up. They might say, what, the 4 bedrooms, as soon as they come on the market, they just get snatched up. You need a 4 bedroom, otherwise, look, there's heaps of 3 bedrooms, but there's just so many of them that saturating the market, and straight away you gain a bit of clarity about that as well. So, and call your agents as well about the streets, about locations, about what people are looking for, and what people look from a rental perspective and from a buying perspective as well. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a bit of insights. A lot of information here. I've just given you a lot of golden nuggets. Please go back, listen to this again. This is what I'm saying. Okay, if you're not sure about certain things, please reach out to us. More than happy to help you and point you in the right direction so you can make a great informed decision. And so I can answer any of your questions. Make sure you don't make any mistakes when going out there and purchasing an investment property, because you want that property to be growing in capital growth, and that's the point of this video. Okay, like I didn't touch on before, or like I said before, I'm not talking. This is just one part of capital growth. Of course, the next part is understanding about the economy of that property market there, which is probably the most important part as well of this. Probably I would say the most important part, because otherwise, if you tick the first, what I've just spoken about here first, if you tick off that but don't do the research into that location, you're not going to get capital growth, because that property market could be traveling in a side trajectory of capital growth, or actually trending down because of the economy. The economy is the most important part when it comes to capital growth. I've spoken about a property perspective of capital growth, but the economy is what's going to dictate your property prices moving in the right direction, okay, moving forward. Okay, if you haven't watched videos on that, please go back or reach to us at the team here at Fresh Start, We'll send you videos about that, of understanding how to achieve capital growth from a location perspective. Okay, thanks guys, we'll see you next week. And if you like this video and you got a lot of value from it, please like the video and even share the video, please. That would help us just to reach to more Australians, that when they're looking at property, how to look at it from a different bird's eye view and get a bit of clarity and learn something different that doesn't get spoken about frequently. All right guys, thank you again, and we'll see you next week.